Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Monday Night Live stream for now week 14 of the 2025 fantasy football season. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday. Unfortunately, this most recent game between the Giants and New England Patriots wasn't the most entertaining. In fact, a lot of complications arose from the events that took place. Besides, of course, the fact we have Stephon Diggs completely missing. We have an injury to Tyrone Tracy. As to the severity of that, to be determined. We have Ramondre Stevenson absolutely Hoover vacuuming in a bunch of touches he does not need, while we have Travion Henderson, as efficient as he has been, completely just sitting on the sideline. It's quite an interesting turn of events, but over the course of today's live stream, we're answering any and all questions regarding week 14, potentially some waiver wire pickups in order to set ourselves up for success as we approach week 14, and of course, eventually get to week 15 and beyond for the fantasy football playoffs. Again, hopefully this most recent Sunday treated you well. We've got an interesting kind of situation every single week, whether it is injuries, whether it is players completely disappearing, and we have to continue to react and adapt to the newest kind of situation, which is fantasy football. In all intents and purposes, that is the name of the game. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's get into it, shall we? I know many of you guys have questions. I was already laughing because Michael Valdez was in the chat saying, please don't even rank Lamar this week. Listen, if it wasn't for Isaiah likely fumbling that pass and for that offensive PI call on Zay Flowers, Lamar has 2+ passing touchdowns in that game. So it's not like the possibility of him scoring is out of the realm. It's just, as of late, definitely been in a tough situation for himself, to say the very least. But I'm sure, as someone that has Lamar Jackson getting less than 10 fantasy points in 3 consecutive weeks, it's probably tough. But you just got to remember, Lamar Jackson he's a special talent, you know what I mean? So it's always difficult not to expect high levels of upside when he's got as much talent as he has, and he's technically responsible for 2 of the greatest fantasy football quarterback seasons of all time, right? And up until that injury this season, he was kind of, he was doing it. And then since then, kind of been an unfortunate scenario for the case of someone like Lamar. Okay, so I do see a question from TPD sent in via Super Chat. Thank you very much, TPD. I appreciate that. It says, considering dropping Neal for Chuba Hubbard or Devin Singletary, running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Judkins, Warren, and Neal. Yeah, look, I don't mind the idea of picking up either of the two in this overall circumstance. When I look at the available options you have mentioned here, Chuba or Singletary. Singletary's potential of picking him up is going to be determined on the severity of Tyrone Tracy's injury, because we got to remember the Giants have a bye week this upcoming week. So if picking up Singletary is only going to be a 1-week play, and by the time we get to week 15, Tracy will be back in action, I'm not sure if it's the most vital potential pickup in that circumstance comparatively. Now, I will say there is an expectation that Alvin Kamara is soon to return, considering they didn't place him on the IR for a season-ending injury. As for Chuba Hubbard in this circumstance, got a pretty good volume of run in that game. If they're going to be a two-headed monster going forward, that wouldn't be a potential bad option, especially considering when we look at the upcoming schedule for the Panthers. Let me just pull this up. All right, the Panthers upcoming have New Orleans, Tampa Bay, they have a bye week this week. Then they have New Orleans, then Tampa Bay. I'm not interested in playing them in week 17 against the Seahawks. I feel like that's a disaster. But against New Orleans and Tampa Bay, I actually don't mind it at all. So it just becomes a matter of do you need a running back this week? Technically, no. I don't mind the idea of going after Hubbard in this case, especially if they start to pivot back towards him continuously. I know him and Rico Dowdle had a very similar volume of rushing attempts, but I don't mind the idea of pivoting in that direction there. Thank you, TBD. All right, let's see here. Louis in the chat was saying, I secured my week 15 bye. What's the best defense for week 16 and 17? You're the best. Thank you. As of right now, when we look at the upcoming schedule ahead, I can go ahead and pull it up just so I have a reference point. Week 16, 17. So if we're excluding that week, all right, let me look at it right now. So if we go ahead, week 16, 17, let me eliminate week 15 from my graphic here. All right, so I don't mind the idea. Let me see. What do we have? Who's playing against Tennessee week 16? That's what I'm curious about. Kansas City has Tennessee week 16, which is not a bad idea in that circumstance. But if we're looking for the two best back-to-back weeks potentially available, I mean, if the New Orleans Saints can, do something as a defense, taking on the Jets and Tennessee Titans could be of value, but I don't think they'll be able to deliver. I would still stick with the idea that maybe Tampa Bay versus Carolina and Miami could be a potential solid start in that circumstance. I'm talking about highly available defenses. Otherwise, I would tell you to just go and play, like Houston every single week henceforth, you know what I mean? Or Seattle. But in the case of like highly available defenses, I feel like Tampa Bay is probably still at the top of that conversation. You'd have to rely on like New Orleans being able to pull it out against Tyrod Taylor and Cam Ward, which I think is certainly possible. Other potential plays that you could theoretically roll with, I feel like that's it. I look at the rest of the field and I think to myself, can I trust them blindly? Like, not really. Genuinely not really. So maybe if somehow, some way the Cincinnati Bengals defense continues to fry, by the time we get to week 16, Miami and Arizona could be a potential, position. Especially when I say fry, I mean they rip off 3 more wins in a row here until they get there. So there's a possibility, but for now, I'd go ahead and just say Tampa Bay is still the number 1 in that combo. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Where are we at? Okay, so a couple more super chats were sent in. I want to go ahead and address those really quickly before I get back into the live chat. Appreciate y'all. All right, we have the Xbox who says, 1 win away from securing the playoffs. Thanks, Ben. I have Watson and Reed on roster. If Reed ends up playing, who do I keep? I think it depends on a couple things here. Let me look at the rest of your roster in terms of what you have on. Okay, so are you asking, would I rather keep Reed or Watson? I would rather keep Watson rest of season. That's for sure. I mean, again, Jayden Reed last season and even the year before, he has proven to us on multiple occasions that he's not going to be someone you can blindly trust every single week. But that's pretty much every Green Bay wide receiver. There's a lot of fluctuation continuously. So for now, I'm leaning in the direction of probably keeping Watson in this case, even if Reed is available. Neil Dynasty 39 sent to the question, says Herbert, Caleb, Puka, Collins, Diggs, Olave, Worthy, Gibbs, Judkins, Kamara, Singletary, Strange, and Loveland. I have Burrow on IR. Who do I drop? So if you're going to drop somebody, in this case, it probably ends up being Colston Loveland as the primary drop, considering, again, he is in a timeshare committee situation until probably next year when they go ahead and offload Cole Kmet. And Bretton Strange is probably going to be your starting tight end every week henceforth the rest of the season. And I don't think there's any really question about that because the matchups are really primed. So as of right now, that would be my suggestion to bring Burrow off of the IR. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up on screen right now. I hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Monday. Shout out Rams defense 1 point. Yeah, brother. Yeah, listen, as someone, oh man, I don't understand. Sometimes the NFL has so much parity. Like there will be a single week in which somehow, some way, the Carolina Panthers come out and they can't stop but move the ball against the Atlanta Falcons. And the week after, an absolute disaster on Monday night against the 49ers. And then all of a sudden, at home against one of the best teams, and probably for many of us, the Super Bowl contending Rams, potentially in that circumstance, I don't know about after yesterday, but they come into town and absolutely get handled by the Carolina Panthers. Unbelievable, but hey, it happens. Any given Sunday, right? It says Fab Dump on Singletary. I don't know. Depends on what the overall kind of circumstances for the injury of Tyrone Tracy. Depending on the significance, we'll see how it kind of pans out. Bye week locked. Thanks, Andrew. No problem. AK hard name for Andrew? I guess, maybe. I don't know. Going forward, Dowdle or Hunt? That's a really good question. I feel like the overall utilization of Kareem Hunt stayed consistent. When we look at the upcoming schedule for both those teams, I think there could be a potential discussion that opens up, especially from like the standpoint of, let me see here. Where's week 15 through 17 look like for the Carolina Panthers? Let me see here real quick. They have New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Seattle. I feel like, again, even in that case, Dowdle's still going to be highly utilized. But in the case of taking on Los Angeles, Tennessee, and Denver, I genuinely feel like Kareem Hunt is going to still be the starter there. And I feel like in that opportunity, he'll still be given the goal line opportunity share, to which there is a reconsideration. Even though I want the answer to be Dowdle, considering how many shares of Dowdle I have right now. I think there is a conversation to be had regarding it being Hunt, because genuinely, if Chuba Hubbard is going to start taking away a lot of the overall workload, going to be the more efficient back, just in the same way in which the tides turned in the favor of Rico, they can turn completely out of the favor back towards Chuba, and we see Dowdle disappear. So I'll lean towards Hunt there. Emmanuel Wilson for Devin Neal. Yeah, absolutely. Look, Emmanuel Wilson is purely just a handcuff. Unless you are going to just be perfectly fine not having Neal on roster, in which you won't use a Margaret, I think at that point, okay. But otherwise, I think Devin Neal's probably a pretty worthwhile grab for rest of season purposes, taking on Carolina, New York Jets, and Tennessee, especially with Taysom Hill not getting any run yesterday. Very much so surprising for me myself, but I think Devin Neal, again, for the next couple weeks, going to still be a value point until Alvin Kamara is back. Would streaming the Eagles defense be a good play if I can't get Tampa? Looking at the Eagles defense, I mean, obviously this week it's still very much so a determining factor as to whether or not Justin Herbert plays, considering he did have surgery on his non-throwing hand earlier today. But in regards to the rest of season schedule, taking on Las Vegas week 15, very advantageous for sure. Week 16, little bit of a tougher say because, again, the expectation would be that Jaden Daniels would be back by then, to which it would make it a little bit more of a difficult potential play for the Eagles defense. And then having to take on Buffalo week 17, I don't really want to play them there either. So I feel like week 15, sure. Outside of that, not 100% like on board blindly. Let's see here. We had a question that says, hey, Andrew, standard league, start Terry, Ibuka, or Michael Wilson. Okay, look, Michael Wilson's purely going to be dependent on the injury to Marvin Harrison. He left early in yesterday's game, had his final touch in the third quarter due to a heel injury. In the event in which Michael Wilson is the wide receiver one once again against the LA Rams this week, I'd be very comfortable rolling him there. Otherwise, Emeka Ibuka has been pretty much just less than 10 fantasy points far too consistently. So that scares the crap out of me. Even in a matchup this week in which, again, I don't know, it gets tough because you know that the player has a lot of potential, but can you outright blindly play him against New Orleans? I would hope we can. As for Terry McLaurin, had an incredible game, a very ample target share, very much so grateful for those of you who had McLaurin, I'm sure, in your lineups, in which that offensive pass interference was not called on them pretty much just shoulder checking Patrick Surtain to lead to Terry McLaurin scoring a touchdown. But that being said, when we look at Washington's schedule this week, specifically taking on Minnesota, don't mind that. Only in the event in which Marvin Harrison's probably out would I consider probably playing Michael Wilson over him. Otherwise, the potential of Jaden Daniels coming back, I feel like Terry McLaurin is just the auto play in that circumstance. It says also in a full PPR start Kincaid, Strange, drop Gadsden. I'm not sure if I'm dropping Gadsden as of just yet. Again, he showed a lot of promise earlier this season, but I would like to play Kincaid this week if I have an opportunity to do so and he's healthy and gets full participation of practice. Because again, they're taking on Cincinnati, and anytime you have an opportunity of playing your tight ends against Cincinnati, you should do so. Thoughts on Gadsden thinking of starting Strange for now? Yes, I would start Strange for now. I don't want to drop him in the case of this situation, but going forward, I think, Brenton Strange is probably the considerable start in favor of him, especially with Parker Washington's most recent injury yesterday. We'll have to keep that monitored and see exactly how long he'll be out for and how the severity of that is going to kind of play out, but we'll see. Let's see here. Terry or Waddle going forward. I'm still sticking with Waddle there. I really like the schedule up ahead. If Jaden Daniels does return, it could potentially shift the tides in that circumstance because the upcoming schedule for Washington looks like a lot of potential shootouts, taking on Minnesota, the New York Giants, Philadelphia, and Dallas. I feel like that does very much so lean towards a Terry McLaurin play. But I will say, again, like I've mentioned before, the upcoming schedule for the likes of Miami, pretty solid, all things considered. Let's see here. They have an upcoming schedule of, let's see, where's week 14? Okay, yeah, we have the New York Jets into the Cincinnati Bengals into Tampa Bay. Like, I feel like that is, and then, sorry, New York Jets into Pittsburgh into Cincinnati into Tampa Bay, which I think is all very much so favorable as well. So as of right now, I'd still stick with Waddle until further notice on the overall Jaden Daniels front. Says, what are the better options besides Zay? As in Zay Flowers, probably just never playing him. I have Michael Wilson, Watson on waivers, and Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin didn't do much this week. Michael Wilson didn't do much this week. Christian Watson got lucky with a huge touchdown down the field, but that's pretty much the MO of Christian Watson. I feel like going forward, again, if that injury for Marvin Harrison's heel is more significant than originally anticipated, again, Michael Wilson would probably be the answer. Otherwise, I think it's Troy Franklin for now, considering, again, I still think that he's very much so a viable piece going forward. Has himself a couple volatile games where he'll disappear, but I think that's almost every quarterback can come, in the fantasy football realm outside of someone like Devontae Adams. Burrow or Brissett this week? I mean, anytime I have an opportunity of playing Burrow, I'm going to. Especially with T. Higgins potentially coming back this week, I would feel very much so comfortable going in that direction. It says, after seeing Bryce against the Rams, I feel like Brissett could still be an option. Yeah, it just depends on the overall circumstance. I feel like, again, the Rams gifted Bryce Young many of great opportunities. And with the turnovers that were forced, again, it provided a lot of upside for Bryce Young in that circumstance. So for now, I'm still going to stick with Burrow. But yeah, I could see why you may lean in the direction of Brissett in this specific week. Because again, he's been so consistent, of course, as of late. All right, let me go ahead. Let me see if I can catch up here. Scored 195 this week. Brother, what kind of a league do you play in? You're scoring 195. That's absolutely insane. Says I won by 1.18 points. Ray, that's ridiculous. Congrats, brother. Strange or Goddard this week. We're going to still stick with Strange for another consecutive week here. Blazing 540 says, I need more wide receiver 2 production going forward. I have Justin Jefferson, Rome Odunze, Shakir, and Worthy. Yeah, so basically the 3 worst weeks that you could have possibly seen out of Jefferson, Odunze, and Shakir took place this most recent week. Worthy obviously was of value because of the Dallas Cowboy matchup, but going forward for the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know if we can outright start Worthy every week out because, again, just a little bit too sketchy, especially this week against Houston. I'm not too interested or keen on starting wide receivers who play on the outside against that secondary, even a burner like Worthy. So it says, is Worthy or Shakir worth a drop for one of the Jets wide receivers? I mean, at this point, looking at the upcoming schedule for specifically the Kansas City Chiefs in the fantasy playoffs, taking on Los Angeles Chargers, Tennessee, then Denver. I feel like against the Chargers and Tennessee, there could be value to be had there. Am I outright going up and picking? Like, I don't mind the idea of A.D. Mitchell, but the reality is there is a possibility in which we could see Garrett Wilson return by the time we get to week 15. In the event in which that does take place, because he's off of the IR, could provide complications for the likes of someone like A.D. Mitchell. But I don't mind the idea there in the case of which I'm not dropping Shakir, though. Let me tell you, I'm not dropping Shakir. I'm not dropping Odunze or Justin Jefferson. Worthy's probably the only consideration because, again, I'm not starting him this week, and I probably wouldn't start him against the Chargers either. I'd probably only ever start him against Tennessee. Let's see here. Mark, what's up? Says, who would you drop out of Brian Robinson, Blake Corum, or Samaje Perine? I have Chase Brown. I can't trust Gadsden anymore. If I was going to drop somebody, I kind of want to wait and see. Okay, so this is my thought process. As of this moment, Samaje Perine, I think, is probably a keep in your case, and so is Blake Corum. I think Brian Robinson would get the drop in this case, and let me tell you why. Between the three of them, because you have the immediate pickup of Chase Brown in effect, just because of this tandem, I think it's probably wise to keep the insurance for your blue chip running back, a running back that has had 100+ yards in 6 straight games. And then for Corum, because Kyron Williams tweaked his ankle a little bit yesterday, there's always the possibility of that being a re-aggravation or something of that extent. So already, because of the bye week here, I'm probably just keeping these two to begin here. I think that's the appropriate approach. Rams or Buck defense next week? Next week as in week 14 or next week as in week 15? Because I would say that we're already in week 14. And they take on the Arizona Cardinals, which at that point, I don't mind at all. Would I play Tampa Bay ahead of them? Probably. As for week 15, when we have the Rams taking on Houston, not too keen on that play. Sorry, not the Rams against Houston. Excuse me. They have, let's find it real quick. Arizona plays against Houston, my bad. The Rams play against, after Arizona, they have Detroit. Not really interested in that either, ultimately. So, probably the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a great option in both scenarios there. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from CJB. 44 says AD Mitchell or Christian Watson this week and for rest of season. I'm still going to stick with Christian Watson in this circumstance. I understand that 12 targets, 8 catches, 100 and a tutty is really tough to pass up on an AD Mitchell. It's just purely going to be dependent on what is the status of Garrett Wilson. Is he going to return? And if he does, he immediately saps away all the value of AD Mitchell, which I think in terms of a rest of season conversation, it hurts, to which at that point I'm less likely to pivot in that direction. So even this week and rest season, I probably stuck with Christian Watson there. Luis Perez sends it a question. Says, Monungai a set it and forget it flex from now on? I feel like that he is. I mean, again, this is 4 consecutive games of a rushing touchdown, but more than ever has his backfield become a two-headed monster where, again, the quarterback is being the afterthought and they're continuing to run the ball up these teams' asses to where, again, it's tough for me to leave it to where Monungai is someone that I am afraid of. If you score a touchdown for 4 consecutive weeks, at this point, it's a guarantee you're falling into the end zone next week against Green Bay. Let's just say won a game 78.94 to 77.22. I have McCaffrey on bye next week. Keaton Mitchell, Michael Carter, or Chubb are available. I mean, of the available options here, Michael Carter will probably be the best option considering he's been the most consistent. Keaton Mitchell would have to get lucky with the touchdown, which isn't impossible against Pittsburgh. And Nick Chubb Nick Chubb, unless he scores a touchdown, is very difficult to trust. So I feel like I like the overall floor of production from Michael Carter under the assumption, again, Trey Benson misses another week here. Otherwise, your next best option is Chubb. Would you prioritize Zach Ertz or Dalton Schultz, PPR? And drop Goddard. I mean, honestly, I would drop Goddard in the case of both of these guys, especially in a full PPR. Who am I prioritizing between the two? Again, I feel like what Dalton Schultz has done of late on more of a consistent range basis is enough for me to trust that he is the better of the two. So it's going to be hard for me to pick Zach Ertz there. Now, I do understand, and I will admit, Zach Ertz with, Jaden Daniels is a significantly better potential fantasy option, and it's been proven that he has a far greater target opportunity share within the red zone. But in a full PPR, when I have someone like Dallas Goedert, who's put up 6 games of the last 8 of double-digit fantasy points in a full PPR, 11 plus in 6 of those 8 games, I have a hard time pivoting away from the consistency and volume there, as he has the 3rd most receptions amongst all tight ends this season. So I lean towards Schultz in this circumstance. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Shane sends it a question, or that's not Shane. That's Shaw. Shahir sends it a question. Says AD Mitchell or Mechie. As of right now, I think AD Mitchell, the target opportunity share of 19 targets in the last 2 games, very much so something that we need to key in on. Obviously, they have each scored a touchdown once in each of the last 2 weeks, so it could be split down the middle. But the talent, I believe, of what AD Mitchell provides when given ample opportunity, whether it has been in seasons past, he has shown flares of like, oh, I can be the guy. And based on the upcoming matchups here, I'm relatively positive that I can be a little bit more confident in the potential of AD Mitchell in this circumstance. It says defensive combo for the playoffs. I think I secured playoffs after winning this week. Defense combo. What do you mean? Oh, okay. Like 2 defenses that I would stack together. If that was the question that you're specifically referring to, again, I really like the idea. If you don't have a first round bye, immediately I think to myself, who's playing against Tennessee, which is San Francisco in the first round of the NFL fantasy football playoffs. So in the event in which you can play San Francisco against Tennessee, I'm all in on that idea. Outside of that, I would maybe lean in the direction of trying to fire up like the Bears defense against Cleveland. I feel like that's a potential expansion that we can go after to begin the fantasy playoffs, and then pair them up with Tampa Bay's defense. Otherwise, you could end up just taking Tampa's defense and then maybe just, if you already have a first round bye for the fantasy playoffs, that's secured. Just pick up Kansas City's defense and play them against Tennessee in week 16. I feel like that's also a potential plan of action. Or if you think you're going to make it to the fantasy football championship weekend, week 17, at that point, we're just going up and, probably picking up New Orleans and firing them up against Tennessee. Again, anybody against Tennessee is always a great option, as we know, for fantasy purposes, as of thus far this season. All right, let's see here. A couple more super chats that were sent in. Let me go ahead and get to those real quick. After Shahir, we had Frank Grillo. What's up? Says, I need to drop one for the following in order to get Bucky off of the IR. Rashad White, Gainwell, or Woody Marks. I would drop Rashad White. Again, even though Sean Tucker is now relegated back to being the RB3, and Rachaad White had a receiving touchdown called back this most recent game. Even though that is the case, I do trust the likes of Woody Marks significantly more. And as for the likes of Gainwell, with Aaron Rodgers continuing to get beat up, there is always a possibility in which, again, he gets injured, he gets out, and Gainwell's value re-evolves back to being like a 5-6 receptions per game kind of player if Mason Rudolph steps under center once again. So I'd rather go in that direction, because I know if in fact Bucky's going to get injured, it's not going to be Rachaad White that gets the value. It's going to go back to Sean Tucker. Thank you. Sunshine sends it a question. It says, Drake May is on a bye. I have Shadur Sanders as my backup. Should I go for someone else in a 14-man half PPR? Available are Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Shuck, Trevor Lawrence, and Aaron Rodgers. Just to name a few. Yeah, I think those are all incredible options comparatively to Shadur Sanders, in which I'm not really interested in playing him this week. So if I have the opportunity to go pick up Trevor Lawrence, that would be my number one. Number two would be Tyrod Taylor. Number three would be Shuck. Number four would be Rodgers. That's the order in which you should put in the waivers to try to pick up quarterbacks. But Trevor Lawrence for sure. Again, Lawrence has been great. I mean, since, week 5, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback. He's been able to score 2+ touchdowns. And if I'm not mistaken, like 7 of the last 9 games. So as a whole, I feel like the consistency of production has been there, and it's viable enough to where I can blindly start him even against Indy this week, which I'm not too worried about. Otherwise, again, if you're not able to get him, it's Tyrod. Thank you. All right, getting back into the live chat, see what you guys have to say. Says, I'm the number 1 seed with a bye locked in. I can afford to have no Kittle this week. Thanks, Andrew. Congratulations, my man. Let's see here. Would you rather have a Ibuka or Kittle PPR flex? I've been offered Kittle straight up for a Ibuka. I think it just depends on what the rest of your overall roster looks like. So as of right now, I would genuinely say the answer is yes. I'd rather have Kittle rest season, assuming you have enough wide receiver depth to justify it. And that's primarily because there's always the option in which Mike Evans does return in the upcoming weeks here, in which that could also siphon some value away from Ibuka effectively. Charlene, what's up? Says, I won this week. Holy moly. Congratulations. Love to see it. Says, what the hell, Patriots? I had Henderson, but I was playing up against Drake May. Ended up with a tie, but I had more bench points. Congratulations. Wow. Wow. You guys have bench points as the tiebreaker? Interesting. I personally would rather just have everybody get a tie across the board, but that is interesting. Wow. May pulled it out for me tonight. Win next week, and I get my bye week. Nice. Playing Brissett this week. Yeah, perfect. Fantastic. I love that option. Roger, what's up? Says PPR Vele, Tesla, or AD Mitchell on the waivers. Who should I prioritize? I think it's a matter of a couple aspects that we will have revealed to us by tomorrow. I believe that Tesla is only a potential value point in the event in which Amon-Ra St. Brown does not end up playing on Thursday. Now, we do know, again, they are playing on Thursday, and earlier today, via practice designation, Amon-Ra was given a non-participant designation. Therefore, if in fact by tomorrow, prior to us putting in waivers, if once again Amon-Ra did not participate, I would probably prioritize Tesla in this circumstance for this week. Otherwise, I would say it's AD Mitchell. Thank you. Are we starting Roman or Alec Pierce this week? Rome is killing me. Yeah, I'd probably just start Alec Pierce against Jacksonville. Rome Odunze is an absolute disaster. I mean, what he has been since week 5 has been so incredibly underwhelming that it's just it's tough to trust on a blind basis. And against Green Bay, I don't really want to trust it. As much as I would love for him to be someone I can start every week, it's just been very difficult to be able to just outright start him because he just doesn't get it done. It's a run-first offense. What do we have here? Okay, Swollen, what's up? Says Flex 2, Sutton, Pierce, ETN, Debo. Okay, first and foremost, when we're looking at these available options, I think it depends on a couple factors here. Let me see what we have in terms of schedules for some of these players, because I haven't obviously done the research yet, because it's still kind of early in week 14. But looking at the upcoming schedule, I mean, I want to play ETN every chance I get. I know he got a touchdown vulture this week. It's kind of an unfortunate circumstance, to which alongside of him, I'm considering greatly. I kind of want to play Cortland Sutton there in hopes that maybe he gets a bounce back. That's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head, it's ETN Sutton. If Jaden Daniels comes back, maybe it ends up being ETN and Debo, but For sure, I know that I want to play ETN every single time out here. Drop Franklin for Chuba, Christian Watson, or Bam Knight. I have Benson. I would say that, again, going forward, I feel like the value, unless you need RB depth, I feel like the value of Troy Franklin's still very much so alive. I'm not too worried about this most recent game. Gadsden, a drop with another dud week. I don't know if he's a drop, but it depends. Like if you can only drop him to pick up another alternative option, then sure. Because I don't like the matchup this week against Philly. And then additionally on top of that, we just had a surgery to the offhand of Justin Herbert. So at that point, it becomes a little bit of a mess. And if you would have to drop Gadsden to pick up someone like Brenton Strange or Dalton Schultz or etc., any of these available options I mentioned earlier today. Again, guys, I did post my waiver wire pickups for week 14 earlier today on the channel. If you guys haven't checked that out, thumbnail is AD Mitchell and it is live now. But yeah, if you had to drop Gadsden to get it done, then so be it. Let them flow, because at this point, I don't want to have to take the risk there if I'm going to win now to get into the playoff situation. Am I ever starting Franklin and Sutton in a 2 wide receiver double flex league? Looking at the upcoming schedule for Denver, I guess the only time you would ever consider it is maybe this week against Las Vegas, and then week 16 against Jacksonville, and then maybe week 17 against the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like those 3 options are still viable. Are you ever going to do it? I mean, it's probably going to be rare. It'll probably be a rare instance. So you don't have to keep him if you just want to reassure your RB depth, which again, if ETN is, again, if maybe you have upcoming bye weeks here, week 14, or potentially have an upcoming schedule up ahead where one of your stud running backs has to take on an incredibly tough run stop defense, for example, taking on like Seattle or something like that, you could just look in the direction of picking up a Chuba in order to utilize him in week 15, 16, which I think is a good option there if you need the depth. Let's see here. Burrow, Stafford, or Dak this week. That's a really interesting one. Let's see what their schedules look like. Again, I'm just going to tell you right now. I'll tell you the answers of what I think off the top of my head. But by the time we get to Thursday, it could absolutely change, because I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So in regards to Dak Prescott taking on Detroit, I really like that, especially with Terrion Arnold going onto the IR. And then we have Matthew Stafford taking on Arizona, which I always love. And then the potential of, who was your other option there? Burrow versus Buffalo. I probably end up playing Dak Prescott in that circumstance. Goddard, Waller, Pitts, Strange rest season. Which one? I prefer Strange. Yeah, that's probably the way in which I go about it. Appreciate the response. No problem, my man. 5-8 now. My league has consolation games. That's a rough league, Charlene. That's a rough one. Am I ever... Okay, we took care of that. Sub, Andrew. In a triple wide receiver full PPR, flex Lamb, Rice, Waddle, flex DK, Flowers, Dobbs, Monangai. Thanks, brother. I mean, at this point, it's Monangai every week at your flex. Half PPR, need to pick up a running back. Algier, Bam Knight, Rodriguez, Pacheco, Sean Tucker, Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason's only ever the pickup if, in fact, that injury to Aaron Jones is a lot more, I guess, brutal than originally anticipated. Based on the reports that we read, it's not a serious injury. So for now, it's probably Rodriguez as the top potential option here going forward. Bench 1, Hurts, Brissett, Indiana Jones, 6-point per passing touchdown, 2-quarterback league. In the case of this kind of format, I probably want to... Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I probably end up playing Jacoby Brissett and Jalen Hurts here. But that's a to-be-determined situation. But that's my immediate thought process. Pick up handcuff running backs and or rookies right now. Yeah, pretty good idea. Full PPR, locked in a buy. I have Ferguson and Gadsden at tight end. Brenton Strange is on the waivers. Should I drop Gadsden for Strange or Ferguson enough? And should I stash a defense? Ooh, that's a really good question. Is Ferguson going to be enough? I always like to have that alternative potential option out there, but taking on Detroit, Minnesota, Los Angeles Chargers, Washington, I feel like Ferguson is enough, and I probably would end up starting him weekly in comparison. Yeah, I'd probably just start him outright in a full PPR in this sake. I mean, over the course of the last, 4 games here, he's 8+ fantasy points every single time out, so he's going to get the yardage and the receptions that he's requiring. He'll have the potential of an upside touchdown every other week here, but ultimately, yeah, I feel like he is enough, and if I'm probably looking towards the future, I'd pick up a defense and stash that for a potential kind of week 16 matchup, pick up Kansas City's defense and roll them against Tennessee. I feel like that's probably the appropriate move there, Hector. Thank you. Jeff, what's up? Jeff sent in a super chat, says, May pulled it out for me tonight. Win next week gets me to the... Okay, we checked this out earlier. If you had any other follow-up questions, Jeff, please let me know. Thanks, man. Would you do Strange or Ferguson this week in a half PPR? Strange versus Detroit or... Oh, sorry. Ferguson versus Detroit or Strange versus Indy. Technically speaking, I'd probably play Strange versus Indy because of matchup. Yeah, that's the way that I go about it. Thank you. Alrighty, slowly but surely catching up. Ebbs and flows, we took care of that one. Half PPR, need to pick up a running back out. Okay, we already took care of that one as well. Good to go. PPR, my running backs are Chris Rodriguez, Tracy, Bucky, and Neal. Who do I start? I mean, Tracy might be injured, and he's going on bye as well. So you're starting Bucky Irving, and you're probably pairing that up with Chris Rodriguez under the assumption that Jaden Daniels returns. Even if Jaden Daniels doesn't return, I think the matchup against Minnesota is advantageous enough for him to be a solid play in that circumstance, as he's scored a touchdown in 4 of the last 6 games he's played. Sup, brother? Full PPR, Kittle's on a bye, Strange or Goddard. I'd rather play Strange this week. Thank you. Again, I mentioned it earlier today. The matchup against the Indianapolis Colts is a top 5 matchup at the tight end position, so Strange should be an auto start going forward. Jeff says, Juwan Johnson rest of season, question mark. Does he have decent floor? He always has decent floor. We have Theo Johnson, Gadsden, and possibly Waller are available. I mean, looking at the overall expansion of use from Juwan Johnson of late, I'm not even afraid of what he saw this most recent week. Yes, he didn't deliver the greatest fantasy point contribution, but he still saw 9 effing targets. Like, that alone makes me feel really comfortable with the floor of production that he provides, especially in a full PPR scoring format there, Jeff. I mean, recently of late, we're talking about someone that has had 10 plus fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games. This most recent week with his highest target count since week 2. Did he have himself a little bit of a flub situation? Not too worried about it. I like the idea of keeping with Juwan Johnson rolling as like a top 8 tight end rest of season. So in comparison to Theo, Gadsden, Waller for now, I prefer the matchups up ahead, and I prefer the overall utilization of opportunity that he's continuing to see with Tyler Shuck there. Let's see here. Dilly in the chat says, Bijan, Bucky with Harvey or Amarion Hampton week 14. I mean, at this point, I think it's a little bit safer to roll Harvey in this circumstance. I know that Amarion Hampton is somebody that I'd be very much so interested in playing because of how horrible that Eagles run stop defense looked, but I don't feel like Amarion Hampton is going to be given the full outload of opportunity, to which I feel like Bijan, Bucky, and Harvey are just my auto starts as of this week. Are Pearsall and Luther Burden droppable? I feel like Luther Burden is. As for Pearsall, again, they've got a relatively strong and advantageous schedule ahead. But again, if you need immediate help now, I think, yes, he's droppable. I have Aubrey and Myers. Should I keep Myers so my opponents can't use him against me? No, at this point, I don't think it's a necessity to have to do that. But honestly, I feel like I'd keep Myers going forward rather than Aubrey. I have Taylor, Vidal, Harvey, Chase Brown, star 3. If you have Jonathan Taylor, Kamani Vidal, Harvey, and Chase Brown, my assumption is that Amarion Hampton returns this week, which makes Vidal a little bit of a lesser option, to which I'm playing Taylor, Harvey, and Chase Brown in this circumstance. I think Myers is the number 1 kicker he is. That's why I'm saying you should probably keep him. For sure. Alrighty, 11-2. 11-2, brother. Really? 11-2 is... Hey, listen, let me tell you, okay? I don't have a single team this season 11-2. I will proudly say after this week, every single one of my fantasy teams this year is going to the playoffs, which is incredible. But I do not have an 11-2 team. That's the one thing that I do not have. I don't even have a team. Do I have a 10-win team? I might actually after this week. I think, yeah, I had a 9-3. No, yeah, 9-3, now 10-3. Yeah. Okay, so I do have a 10-win team, one of them. But otherwise, really strong. 11-2 is, I mean, brother, everything's going for you in the right direction. Are we too high in general on Gadsden? I mean, as of late, perhaps we are, but just looking at where he was at about a month ago, in terms of the overall opportunity share, the expansion, the kind of them anointing him as the number 2 option for those 4 games there where Quentin Johnston disappeared and Keenan Allen has since disappeared. It wasn't really an overreaction. It was just us kind of adapting to the new reality of what the offense was looking like. And considering we know who their offensive coordinator is, Greg Roman. Greg Roman was the former offensive coordinator for the Ravens for a very long time. And there's a reason why Mark Andrews started off his career as hot as he did, is because they wanted to utilize the tight end position there, and that's what Greg Roman's done his entire career. We assumed maybe Gadsden can continue to follow in those kind of shoes, which obviously as of late has not been the case. It says drop Gadsden to stash the Kansas City defense. I have to roll with Andrews. I mean, at this point, if you're preparing for week 16 in advance, yeah, I would go ahead and do this, because I think what the Chiefs will do to the Tennessee Titans would be beautiful for fantasy purposes. Pick up Kayshon Boutte, Terry McLaurin, or Jacoby Myers, or all three. Yeah, I mean, I would say if you have to, pick up all three. Otherwise, Scary Terry's number 1, Jacoby's number 2, and then maybe you can pick up Boutte, but I think Scary Terry and Myers need to be prioritized, considering Boutte goes on bye week this week. I don't know how I'm still in the playoff hunt. Listen, sometimes we don't ask questions. We just keep rolling with the punches. Myers or Addison rest season? It's Myers. Especially the way that, I mean, again, I love the schedule for Addison, but the quarterback play is just not there. Even the third stringer couldn't even pull it. He threw 4 picks. Thoughts on Javonte and JMO rest of season? As of right now, again, Jamison Williams, pretty much the king. He has the keys to the kingdom. He has everything going in his direction with that offense, with Laporta and Amon-Ra injured. As for Javonte, again, the Dallas Cowboys look like they're trending to try to make a wild card playoff berth. And honestly, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to stop them after taking care of not only the Eagles, but then subsequently after the Chiefs. So I feel like both of them are in really advantageous positions going forward. But mainly the opportunity which Javonte and JMO have seen recently is the biggest difference maker. Like Jamison Williams, first and foremost, again, with the absence of all those other threats, he's going to get his touches. But Javonte Williams hitting like season high of rushing attempts in each of the last 2 games here is absolutely vital. Let's see here. 10-3, baby. Second place by 3 points. Okay, we're going to get there. We'll catch them next week here. Full PPR flex Ferguson, AD Mitchell, or Neal. I mean, at this point, that's a tough one to say outright. As of this moment, yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that one. 2 leagues, first in both record and points, 10-3, 9-4. Never had this much luck. Yeah, listen, sometimes you just have to thank the fantasy gods and keep it smiling. That's it. They're smiling wave, smiling wave. Owen Baker or Trevor Lawrence. Baker in Tampa Bay takes on New Orleans. I feel like that's a great play there. I'd probably go Baker in this circumstance. But I think Trevor Lawrence, I mean, again, there's always rushing upside, but I feel like Baker's probably the play in that circumstance. I feel comfortable with that. As for your previous questions, tough to say. Rico or Hubbard rest of season? I don't even know. If the Carolina Panthers knew the answer to that question, then maybe I would know. But I feel like, okay, so here's the thought process, right? The utilization of Hubbard makes me think that they may go to a 2-headed monster, but they want to favor Hubbard because they have all the money invested in him. So ultimately, I think they'll probably continue to shift towards Hubbard going forward here. Especially hitting the bye week, Hubbard will get healthy another week here. So one more week removed from that calf injury, he'll be that much better of an option. Keeping Algier and Hunt, your thoughts? Hunt should be kept. He's the starter of that backfield. Algier, any given week, can score a touchdown. Don't love the matchup this week in Seattle, though. Dropping Aubrey for Myers then. I mean, yeah, if you have Aubrey and Myers, again, Myers is by far and away the number 1 kicker in fantasy, to the point to where, again, right now, in terms of fantasy points that he's contributed of late, let's go see here. Jason Myers has put up 19, 13, 14, 15 in the last 4 games. He is legitimately, I'm not even joking, in terms of total fantasy points, probably has scored more points than Travis Etienne in the last 4 games. So just putting it into perspective. Jacksonville's defense, a good start in week 15 versus the New York Jets. Yes, absolutely. I do believe that is the case. Do we trust Rome last season? Probably not. Chicago's very run heavy. I agree. Freddie, what's up? Says all are droppable. Michael Wilson, Parker Washington. I feel like Michael Wilson's probably a pickup considering the Marvin Harrison injury, and Parker Washington could be dropped considering his own injury, but it just depends. Let's see. Lions, DTS, or Chargers this week. If I'm do I want to play the Lions defense and special teams or the Chargers? I don't really want to play the Chargers technically. What do the Lions take on this week? The Lions matchup is against Dallas. I'd rather play the Chargers, genuinely. I'm not playing anybody against Dallas's offense right now. Any off-season content plans for you, Kjork? Also, don't know too much personal question, but want to know yours. what I get up to in the offseason. Majority of what the offseason gets up to is just research for the regular season. That's pretty much it. Do I have any offseason potential content plans? No, not really at the moment. Again, there's so much time that's committed to planning and preparing and developing everything for the season itself, especially when we talk about in season. I mean, I work 7 days a week, easily upwards of 12 to 14 hours a day minimum. So like for example, just to put into perspective how like a normal Monday works, I wake up, I work, then I work out, then I work, and then I eat, and then I work, and then I go to sleep. That's all I do. And that's pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, occasionally on a Thursday, because again, there's a Thursday night game, so I can relax a little bit, but I'm watching the game nonetheless. Friday, I get a little bit of a time off on night, at night. Saturday is a little bit of a different thing because I probably spent upwards of just 8 hours alone doing rankings besides the stream that we conduct. So because of how much I work during the season, I very much so enjoy the time off during the off season. Anyway, appreciate it. Let's see here. Drewski, we took care of that. It says 2 wide receivers this week, Terry, Sutton, Ibuka. I mean, Terry, if Jaden Daniels is back, I'm playing Terry there. As for Ibuka versus New Orleans or Sutton versus the Raiders. Look, every week I want to play Emeka Ibuka. I want to. But he's making it all too difficult for me to trust him outright. So it's gotten to a point to where, like, can I outright trust him? No. Do I want to? Yes. As of right now, I probably still play Ibuka because I'm just crazy like that. And just hope that he hits. All right, let's see here. Suarez, 6088, says, Justin Jefferson, owner in a full PPR league, said he's willing to trade me just for McLaurin. Send it, or is JD5 coming back plus Minnesota? Quarterback play too bad. Yeah, as of right now, let's wait. Let's see what the overall practice report looks by Wednesday. I'm sure that they'll still be willing to give you this trade by the time we get to Wednesday. But if we get a confirmation that we have the return of Jaden Daniels, I think it might be the play to keep, especially with the upcoming schedule ahead. Troops McGee says, I'm sadly with you on Hubbard, Brissett, or Knicks week 14. Honestly, until further notice, it's Brissett always over Knicks because I made the mistake of playing Knicks this week, and I'll dearly repent my sins for that one. Week 15, would you roll with Knicks at home versus Green Bay or Tua versus Pittsburgh? I still roll with Knicks in this circumstance. Tua is too difficult to trust. Tua also has Cincinnati and Tampa Bay week 16, 17. I know the matchups are incredible, but Tua is not good at football. So, I mean, just ultimately as a whole, can I outright blindly trust Tua when he has put up less than 10 fantasy points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the last 7 games? I can't trust it. I'll just go with Bo in that scenario. So I'll just take Brissett in this circumstance. Enjoy it. We appreciate all that you do answer for us. So I'm surprised you haven't hit 100K. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm as much as I'd like to hit 100K, it's nothing that I like. It keeps me up at night. I just can try my best. That's all I can do every day. I put together my best effort that I possibly can put forward and just let the cards out on the table and let the world guide me in whatever direction it does. But I do appreciate the support. Thank you. Actually, I have Jaden Daniels too. So bench 2 between. Okay, in the event in which Jaden Daniels plays, I genuinely would play Jaden Daniels and Jacoby Brissett. And then I'd sit Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones. That's kind of the thought process of which I have at this moment. Thank you. Constantino, what's up? Says, just saying thanks for helping me out to get 2 of my 3 teams, 10-3 semis. Unfortunately, week 2, ESPN play. Oh, brother. Guys, we got to stop with this ESPN stuff. We got to. Please, guys, I'm telling you, we cannot be playing in 2-week fantasy playoffs. We can't do it. It should be illegal. Someone at ESPN needs to know about this and needs to shut it down. The fact that people are playing in either week 14 for the fantasy playoffs or week 18 for the fantasy playoffs, both should be illegal by all terms. Just saying. Again, I've always told you guys, be the commissioner of your league because it's not hard and it very easily can be avoided, this absolute disaster of a mess. Okay, last question. Just curious thoughts on K9 rest of season. Again, he's going to continue to do what he does. He'll probably score 10 points a week, and that's it. If he scores 16, you got incredibly lucky. At 1.0.6, thanks to those kneels by May. Wow, congratulations. Well, it says drop Chuba for Woody Marks. Feels like a mistake. No, I mean, look, Woody Mark still gets enough touches. He just hasn't found the end zone recently. Would you start a receiver, Adunze, or Quentin Johnston? I mean, Quentin Johnston probably ends up being the play there if, in fact, we have a healthy Justin Herbert come Monday. Flex Marks, Charbonnet, or Monangai. I mean, it's Monangai. It has to be. Sorry, I hate these ads. I know it's a business. Yeah, if you get hit with ads, it's because it automatically does it. I don't even put it on. After again, I know there's a button here that has me like click ads. Like I can click it right now. I just never do because I'm too busy looking at the live chat or answering questions. I mean, again, yeah, listen, I would suggest, Charlene, just go get an ad blocker. Trust me. There's a couple, if you have Google Chrome, there's like 5 or 6 good ad blockers out there. Usually what I do is I get all 3. I have like 3 to 5 of them, and I have them all active at once. So no matter what, never do I see an ad. If you have ESPN, you're part of the problem. Yeah, that's why I don't play on ESPN. Yahoo and Sleeper all day, baby. Let's go. Appreciate your help, brother. No problem, man. Lost Amon-Ra, is Tesla worth the start? Yeah, I think so. If Amon-Ra doesn't play on Thursday against Dallas, I think Tesla's absolutely worth the start. It's wild when you lose, when you have Herbie, Gibbs, Jacobs, and HN on your team. Patriots kicker been clutch. Clutch in a good way or a bad way, because that Patriots kicker missed the field goal too when he shouldn't have. Guys, did you guys see Younghoe Koo's kick? We saw that, right? Y'all were watching the game. Just pay for premium. I know, I do the same thing. I already pay for premium as well because business expense, easy clap, boom. Vele, Tesla, Dobbs, Wicks, rank them. I mean, as of right now, assuming Amon-Ra's out, Tesla's number 1. Then at that point, it becomes a matter of, is Jaden Reed active? To which then we decide between Dobbs and Wicks. If in fact Jaden Reed is active, then we go Vele 2, and then Dobbs 3, Wicks 4. Bro missed the ball. But no. Listen, bro, okay, I don't want to say it, but I might say it. He stubbed his toe, yes, but how? Guys, it's not physically possible. There's no way that a kicker, it's not that he forgot to kick the ball. He didn't kick the ball. What is that? That's got to be some sort of I don't know. If the FBI is watching any of these games, I know the FBA watches the NBA a lot. The FBI maybe needs to start watching some football games here, okay? Because that didn't look good. They called it a sack because you can't miss it if you didn't kick the ball. Yeah, because it becomes a rushing attempt because the holder picked it up. It's crazy. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. In my life, I've never seen that. Bradley, what's up? Bradley's probably going to be the final question today. Jaden, Brissett, Puka, Rice, Rome, BTJ, McBride, Saquon, Marks, Gainwell. Am I cooked? I don't know if you're no, you're not cooked because you still have a really solid quarterback, whichever way it goes. You have Puka, you have Rice, you have McBride. If Saquon shows up for you, brother, you're in a perfect position. But that's the biggest contingency your whole season. It's can Saquon show up? And oftentimes he hasn't recently. Alex Ruiz, 5396, says lost Amon-Ra, PPR Vele, AD Mitchell, Mechie, or Tesla. Again, if Amon-Ra is going to miss this week and only this week, I feel like Tesla's the appropriate pickup and play. Otherwise, outside of that, it would go to AD Mitchell second and then Vele third. But only once we get confirmation that Amon-Ra is missing is Tesla a solid potential play for this week. But not even only this week. Maybe Amon-Ra misses multiple weeks. He could be a potential play for week 15 as well. 12-1 league, fighting tooth and nail in another. I love this game. Knicks, Caleb, or Brissett. I mean, I would play Brissett there and drop Fairbairn for McPherson. I don't know if you have to drop Fairbairn for McPherson, but I feel like, look, this is the number one thing about Fairbairn is that after this week against Kansas City in Kansas City, every other game he has is indoors and there's no weather implication. And as we get closer to December, January, the weather games get to be a problem. So there is a conversation to be just keeping with Fairbairn. Otherwise, I mean, just as of late, McPherson's been unstoppable, so I would make the swap. Let's see here. Stroud, Jackson, or Goff? I mean, you don't want to hear my answer for that. You don't want to hear my answer. Should I start Lamar or Caleb trying to get Taylor from the Jets? I mean, Do you really want to get Taylor from the Jets? I don't know if Mason Taylor's the play. Start Lamar or Caleb. Caleb versus Green Bay or Lamar versus Pittsburgh. I mean, again, I don't know if you want my answer. I'm going to tell you to play Lamar there. Genuinely. Actually, that's my answer. All right, guys. That's going to cover for me today. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel, as you guys typically do. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Not tomorrow morning. Probably tomorrow afternoon with my top 36 running back rankings for week 14. And then, of course, tomorrow afternoon/night around 6-7 p.m. PST, live streaming here on the channel, answering questions for waiver wire pickups. Once we get more information regarding Amon-Ra, I think that'll certainly imply as to what the overall value of someone like Isaac Tesla is going forward, and effectively what the situation is for Tyrone Tracy and whether we need to be picking up someone like Singletary, etc. But I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. I'm going to go ahead and get to working on those rankings for tomorrow. Much appreciated. Miami, Bucks, Texans, Browns defense this week. Freddie. Oh, man, Miami Buccaneers are both really good options. Texans versus Kansas City. I don't know if I can outright trust that one. Browns defense against... Don't the Browns play Tennessee this week? I'd probably just play the Browns defense in that circumstance. I feel like they're rostered in 70% of leagues, though. That's why I didn't recommend them earlier today. All right, guys. We're going to call it there. I'm cueing the double helix. Enjoy the outro music. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.